Hello and welcome back to the Joyful Soul Creates. Charlotte here, and for today's video I'm doing a 2-for-1 again. I hadn't actually planned for it to be a 2-for-1, but it did turn out being a 2-for-1. And the technique I'm focusing on is making a kind of stained glass look with ink blending and stenciling. So I am using the Kitty Slimline stencil from STAMPlorations, which I showed in my haul video earlier this month, and is a really lovely stencil. And seeing as I'm making cat cards this week for the Cat Lovers blog hop which is going on, I figured it would be perfect to use. I'm going to be using a variety of Catherine Paula inks for my ink blending, so I have Tutti, Frutti, Tiki, Tiara, Lime Rickey, Something Borrowed, and Flirty Fuchsia, which basically gives me a rainbow of colours. And I'm using finger daubers for my ink blending because they are ideal for getting into the little areas of this design. At first I was literally just using the sponge daubers, but some of the areas are so small that I couldn't guarantee that my colours were staying within the confines of each section, so I did end up bringing in some pieces of post-it tape to mask off around each area as I ink blended it to try and keep the colours separate. I later swapped to some snippets of printer paper and even some little bits of washi tape. Whatever you have to use here will work. When I started, the first few areas I blended, I was trying to go like in rainbow order, but the further along I went, I decided just to be a bit more random with the colours, but also try not to have two of the same colours right next to each other. I think I did have one place where I ended up with two greens next to each other just under the ear at the top, although they're both very small, so I think I get away with it. It's not obvious that I did that. This ink blending really is very easy. As I said, I'm just using the sponge daubers. I have one for each colour and just blending in to one section at a time. These are scrapbook.com brand sponge daubers, and I will have a link for those below. They actually stack together, which is really useful, and I have a round storage container that they go in. I think you can also get a storage box to keep them in. But as I said, I'll link to those below and they will be affiliate links. The inks are also linked below. Again, those are affiliate links. So if you do purchase with my links, then I really appreciate your support. It always makes me so happy when I see that I've made an affiliate sale, and even just seeing how many people have clicked on it, because the tracking of the affiliate links can tell me how many people have clicked the links. I don't know specifically who has clicked the link, but it has like a graph that shows how many people have clicked, and it's just really interesting to see. Anyway, I worked my way down the stencil, going one colour at a time, and as I said, I kind of was somewhat random with the colouring, but also each time I did a section I looked at what colours were nearby and tried to use one that I hadn't used in the direct vicinity recently. And this did take a little while. It wasn't too time consuming, but obviously it's going to be a lot faster to just blend traditionally across the entire stencil rather than trying to work one section at a time. But as I said, it didn't take too long, and I think the effect was worth the time that it took to do it anyway. And today's secret question for the comments for the giveaway is, have you made any slimline cards before? They are on trend at the moment, so maybe you have, maybe you haven't dabbled in them yet, but leave that in the comments and then head over to Rafflecopter to let it know that you commented. And make sure you have commented on the original giveaway video so that your entries do count. One thing to bear in mind with these snippets of paper for masking off the edges is they may get oversaturated. So here when I was doing the blue, it bled through the snippet into my yellow piece and made a little green area, which is not ideal and not at all what I was going for. But a lot of places my colours weren't perfect anyway, so I decided just to put up with it. And I think whilst it's definitely visible, I don't think it's super obvious. It doesn't jump out at you. So hopefully whoever receives this card won't mind. I will just finish going around to the end of the tail and do the last few colours. This is obviously for a Slimline card because it's a Slimline stencil. I believe this panel was cut to 8 by 3 1/4, something like that. Because I do my Slimline card bases at 3.5 by 8 1/4 because A4 card, which is what I had, is 8 1/4 wide, not 8.5. So my Slimline cards end up slightly shorter than I think most people do. This is where I ended up with the 2 for 1. I was going to clean off my stencil and then realised, well, I have all that ink on it still, so I may as well make use of it. To do that, I just spritzed it with some water and then turned it over onto another piece of card. This isn't even watercolour card, it's just the same stamping card that I'd used for my original panel. So I'm kind of pressing the wet ink onto that other piece of card, and that gives a very soft impression, which will be my second card panel. I will then go back to my main card with the ink blended design, and I treated it well with an anti-static powder tool, laid the stencil back into place, and then I'm filling in all the areas with embossing ink. I did use a sponge dauber here again because I wasn't convinced that the stencil was completely clean, so I didn't want to press the ink pad directly onto it, which is how I would normally do this, and I don't have a larger blending tool dedicated to my embossing ink, which I probably should do at some point, but for the time being the sponge dauber worked fine. I will then coat the image with clear embossing powder and put the excess powder away. I did use a little paintbrush to knock off some areas where I guess I hadn't used enough anti-static powder. And then I will heat set the image. You can see it all turns shiny as the embossing powder melts. And this actually looks quite nice as it is, but I wanted to make it look like stained glass. And for doing that, I want a black background. I did bring in my ink blending tool, but then I decided just to go direct paper, or as some people refer to it, do some swinking, which literally just means ink swiping. You're bringing the ink pad onto your panel and swiping it across. So this very quickly got me the nice dark coverage that I wanted. And then I just brought in my microfiber towel, which I had got very slightly damp, and I'm going to rub that all across the embossed area, which will lift the black ink that is on top of my embossing and just brighten that area back up. And I did go over this just a couple of times to make sure I had it completely clean and that the ink blended areas were standing out nicely. When I was happy with that, I brought in some double-sided tape. Often when I'm adhering panels down, I like to use this really wide double-sided tape because it will cover the entire panel, which I find actually makes it much easier to stick it down, and it also means that it counters any warping that there may be, for example from the heat embossing here, or on the other panel later from the water that was on it. Once I have the tape on, I actually did trim the panel down very slightly because one of the edges was uneven, so I just wanted to straighten that up, and then I trimmed the other edge to make sure that the border on the white card base would be even all the way around. I didn't really pay attention to the exact measurement here, it was just once I felt that it looked how I wanted it, then I considered it to be done. I did get some transfer of the black ink onto my white card base, so I just used my sand razor to remove that, and then peeled up one corner of the backing on my tape so that I could get my panel into position on the card base and then peel away the rest of the backing and get it stuck down nice and straight. I will repeat the process with my secondary panel, which is the one that I got the impression from the leftover ink. And this one is going to go onto a black card base, and for some reason I was having trouble getting the backing off the tape this time, and I couldn't find my reverse tweezers, so I just used my craft knife to help me get that. And once I had that stuck down, that completed both of the cards. Even though they are made with the same inks, they actually have quite different colours, I think, and very different looks to them. Obviously the second one is very soft and the other one is more bright and striking. I would be really interested to hear which of the two is your favourite. Thank you for commenting, liking, subscribing, sharing with your friends and shopping with my affiliate links if you do. Your support really means a lot to me. There are a couple of other videos showing on screen if you'd like to see more from me straight away. Otherwise, I'll thank you very much for watching and I'll see you again in the next video. Bye!